Our final app of this section is called Basic Phrases, and it's an app designed to allow you to say basic phrases in another language. So we're just going to take a brief break from our hard coding and see how we create the layout that we're going to need using a grid layout, similar to the one that we created in the Connect 3 app. We're going to have 8 basic phrases in our app, so that means we want a grid which is 2 along by 4 tall, and each of those is going to have a button in. So if you want to, consider this a challenge to create that layout using a grid layout. You want 8 buttons, 2 by 4. If you're coming from a previous version of Android Studio, it's actually quite a bit easier to do with Android Studio 3 because you don't need to be so careful about which row and column each button is in. You could just list them in order and they will fill up the grid layout from top to bottom and left to right. So let's get going. We'll add a grid layout, which by default will fill almost the whole screen, which is fine for our purposes. Add in some constraints and then set the number of rows and columns. I always do rows first, even though C comes before L. So the row count is 4 and the column count is 2. And then, similar to what we did on the Connect 3 app, we bring in a button, which I always get into the habit of dragging into the top left. And then let's see what happens if we copy and paste the text for that button a few times. Okay, so you can see it is laying it out correctly according to the grid, and if we keep going, it'll fill up the 2 by 4 grid layout that we've specified. But we want our buttons to fill the screen. Now, as always, there's a number of ways that we can do that, but I'm going to show you a nice and easy way using Gravity, which is not something that we've used much so far. So let me show you how we can use Gravity to fill up the available space. So we just set layout Gravity, and often we use this to specify whether we want it to be on the left, right, top or bottom, but we're going to go for fill. And this will then fill the whole space available to the button. To do that, we also need to get rid of the width and height there, and then we need to specify how many rows and columns we want this button to take up. And we can specify that using Android layout row weight, and we want it to take up a row of 1, i.e. 1 row. And similarly, we want it to take up 1 column. So when there's only one button there, it will spread to the whole of the grid layout. But when we add more buttons, see now we have a nicely filled grid layout of just 2 by 1. Now we're up to 2 by 2. So let's add, in fact, I can copy all of those and paste another 4 in, and now I have the layout which I'm looking for, which was 2 by 4. I've got various problems with IDs, and I haven't done any on-click methods, but those will set in the next video. For now, we've got the layout that we wanted, and it's actually quite a common one to aim for, but a tricky one if you don't know about gravity fill and row weight and column weight. So now that we've covered those, well, let's jump in the next video to actually making our basic phrases app.